Today we will be talking about energy conversions in the cell. Remember, all cells need energy to perform chemical reactions and stay alive. This energy comes from the food that is absorbed by the cell. So the energy from carbohydrates and lipids is not used directly. First, it has to be converted into a more usable form. So we have glucose here, and it is converted into ATP. ATP is the energy molecule that is utilized by all cells. So energy is taken out from the food and converted into the more usable ATP molecules. But why can't cells use energy directly from food? Like, why do we have to convert it to ATP? And that's because glucose is too much energy. The energy it has is too much to be released all at once. If all of the energy in glucose was released at once, most of it would be wasted and just released as heat. So the cell makes ATP so that the energy can be released a little bit at a time. So one glucose molecule can create up to 36 ATP molecules, and the ATP molecules can deliver smaller amounts of energy without wasting much of it at all. So here we have our cellular respiration formula. We have glucose plus 6 molecules of oxygen yields 6 molecules of water plus 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and some energy. And cellular respiration is the process performed by cells to get energy out of food. So to understand this process, you need to understand how to read a chemical reaction. So the reactants, which will be on the left side of the arrow, are going to be glucose and oxygen. And those are the raw materials needed for a reaction to take place. And then the products will be the water, carbon dioxide, and energy. That is on the right side of the arrow. So when heat or energy appears in the chemical equation on the product side or the right side of the arrow, it means that it is being released. So cellular respiration releases energy from the food so that it can be used by the cell. Mitochondria is the organelle where most of cellular respiration takes place. This is why we say that mitochondria is a power plant or the powerhouse of the cell. It is where energy from raw materials is converted into usable ATP. So fermentation is a less efficient process to make ATP. It happens when your muscle cells are low in oxygen, such as during exercise. And during this process of fermentation, you will produce lactic acid, and that's the stuff that makes you feel sore. Fermentation can also happen with yeast and bacteria, and it's used in the food industry. It produces alcohol instead of lactic acid as a side product. Carbon dioxide is still produced, which is why yeast makes bread rise. Our next reaction is photosynthesis, and that's a process which plants and other autotrophic organisms make their own food, glucose in particular. So for this one, our reactants that are needed by plants to perform photosynthesis are water, carbon dioxide, and of course energy, sunlight. And the products of photosynthesis will be glucose and oxygen. So glucose is a food molecule created by photosynthesis. What we have to remember is when heat or energy appears in the chemical equation on the reactant side or the left side over here, that means it is being absorbed. So photosynthesis absorbs energy so that the plants can make their food. The energy absorbed by the plants during photosynthesis comes from the sun. So photo means light. And the energy in the sugars made by glucose is stored in the chemical bonds, so we call it chemical energy. Because of this, we say that plants and other photosynthetic organisms convert solar energy into chemical energy. So there are different types of energy, and here we're using two. Chloroplasts is the organelle in plant cells which absorb light and perform photosynthesis. And here we can see them right here, and then here's a model or diagram. The chloroplasts are full of chlorophyll molecules, and then this is the molecule that will absorb light energy that will be used to make the glucose. Chloro means green. Seeds and very young plants need oxygen to grow and not carbon dioxide. Why is this? And that's because seeds need oxygen to perform cellular respiration, so to use the food energy stored in the seeds by their parents. They cannot perform photosynthesis until they're large enough to have their own leaves. So a misconception that a lot of people don't realize is that plants still have to do cellular respiration in order to have different functions or different actions that the plants need, but they can do both. So they can do photosynthesis as well as cellular respiration. Deep in the ocean, where there's no light for photosynthesis to occur, we still have autotrophs. So in the 1970s, scientists found entire food webs living near the underwater hydrothermal vents, which spew minerals and provide heat. So these scientists found these bacteria that perform chemosynthesis by obtaining energy from the inorganic compounds like hydrogen sulfide instead of light. And these bacteria use this energy and carbon dioxide to produce the organic compounds needed in the ecosystem. So they'll use the energy from these hot water vents, and the bacteria will create the food, and then those bacteria will be the basis of that food web. These chemosynthetic bacteria are the producers in these underwater ecosystems, and they often live symbiotically inside larger animals like tube worms shown to the right. So here we have them. Okay, so that is the notes. Make sure that you wrote everything in green and in red, and if you have to go back, go ahead and do that.